One of the most important aspects of game development is the release of your game. You need to put your game out there among the rest and get players into your game and staying in your game so that it keeps a sustained player count and makes your game successful. But how can you do that? When you release your game, how do you get it off the ground? How do you get noticed? Well, in this video, we're going to go through some strategies that you can use to get your game out there and noticed by people, which can give it a good kickstart and keep it sustained with a good player count. Let's dive in. So when it comes to marketing your game and getting it out there, probably the first thing that comes to most people's mind is advertising on Roblox. You can spend Robux and then your adverts will appear on players' screens. They might click it, and if they do, there's a chance that they join your game. Now, advertising might not actually be the best way to get your game out there. For starters, it's expensive and it can fail. You might not make your money back in profit. So we'll get onto that a little bit later, but I'm going to give you a couple of other strategies which don't cost anything but can be really successful in getting your game out there. And the first one is using small streamers. There's loads of small streamers out there on Twitch, on YouTube, streaming themselves playing Roblox games. And whilst they might not be the biggest creators out there, they're still a great way to get your game out to an audience because they do have viewers, albeit a low viewer count, maybe 10 to 20 viewers. That's great because you can start a server and get all of the people watching that stream into your game. You can see your game through a player's perspective. Now, being the creator of the game, you might not understand what it's like to be a player. There might be things which you've overlooked. And so it's a good way to just make sure that your game is alright and it's working and there's nothing wrong with it and it's making a good experience for your players. And you also get instant feedback. I mean, if someone doesn't like it or the streamer doesn't like it, they're going to instantly tell you, whereas you can't really tell what players like and dislike unless you have an integrated feedback GUI, and then again your players might not even decide to use it. But don't go jumping onto streamers straight away and ask them to play your game. That's not the way to go about it. Just join their community, watch them a couple of times, become an active member of their community, and try to make friends and connections with the people in the stream so you become a regular or you become known to the streamer. Don't just go in there and say, please play my game. You want to build up a relationship with the streamer and get to know them and maybe just hang out with them for a bit and play some games with them. It doesn't have to be your game, but then maybe after a couple of streams, once you've got to know them, ask if they'll play your game on their stream. And like I said, even if they've got a low amount of viewers, it doesn't matter. It's getting people into your game. You're being able to experience it with other people, and you'll get feedback on it. So that's a great way to firstly test your game to see if it's ready. Because a lot of people, they just finish their game and they think, yeah, it's ready. Here we go. I want to start making some Robux off this game. Or I want to get a load of players in my game. But the game has to be ready. It has to be polished. There can't be any bugs and it has to be engaging. So take the extra time. I know it can be annoying when you want to get your game out there and you don't really want to work on it anymore because you might not be motivated, you might not see any results from it, but you just have to go that extra mile, make sure it's polished, make sure it's a good experience, and then you can think about advertising it further with Robux or going into streamers, etc. When you want to advertise your game, you want to be sure that it's 100% ready to go because like I said, if it fails, then you're not going to get your money back and then you're dealing with losing money, and you don't want to lose money, so you want to make sure your game is 100% ready to go and perfected pretty much. But if you do want to advertise your game, there are a few tips. Test a couple of ads, so get a couple of designs done. You don't just want to have one advert, you want to have multiple with different designs, and then have a low budget. So we're talking maybe 100 to 500 Robux or maybe 500 to 1000 Robux. Just spend that on all 3 adverts. Let's say you did 3 adverts. Spend an equal amount on all 3 and run them at the same time and see which adverts perform the best. And then you'll find adverts might need to be redone in terms of the design because they've not got a very good click-through rate. And you might find adverts which have a great click-through rate, which you want to advertise again and you want to use them over and again. So firstly, test out your adverts, make sure that they are effective at getting clicks. Then also, don't throw loads of money in one go on adverts. I see loads of people dropping 10,000 Robux, 25,000 Robux, and in some cases even over 100,000 on an advert. And they haven't tested their adverts out before. They haven't made sure that their game's fully ready to go. They're kind of just doing it on a whim because they just want to get their game out there. and the game fails. So don't throw lots of money at one advert in one go. In my experience, it's better to do loads of smaller adverts over a longer period of time than one big advert over a short period of time. Because most of the time, your game's player count will spike when the advert's running, but as soon as it stops, then the player count will just fall back down to 0. And that's a sign that your game isn't very good at retaining players and keeping players coming back. And that's something I touched upon in my previous video about why Roblox games fail. So if you want to learn more about that, check out the card or the link will be in the description. Now, another reason you might want to advertise your game is because it sends signals to Roblox's algorithms. Obviously, the Roblox search, the game search, which we use to find games, is controlled by algorithms. We don't have manual people telling us which games to play when we search for something. When you search for a keyword in the Roblox search tab, then Roblox's algorithms are going to find games which are relevant and related to that search term, and it's going to show them to you in the search results. Now, to get your game in those search results, you need to firstly make sure that your game is tagged properly and you're sending keywords to that algorithm, so you're telling the algorithm about your game. And to do that, you can use your game's description panel and also title. So if your game was about boats, for example, you'd want to have the word boat in your title, in the description, and maybe some other words relating to boats in that description as well. So you could have sail or ship or seas, words relating to your game in that description. So you're capturing multiple keywords which players might be searching for. They might not be searching for a boat game, they might be searching for a ship game. So you want to make sure you're including as many keywords as possible in that metadata, but don't go stuffing them. Don't just go adding all of those words at the bottom of your description as if you were spamming them. You want to write good sentences about your game. You want to explain it in detail and just sprinkle in a couple of those words every now and again. So don't go stuffing keywords into your description. Now, when you've done that, you're giving Roblox a good idea of what your game is about. But then you also want to give yourself an even better chance of getting onto the search page. It's not just about having keywords in your description or your title of your game, which will get you onto that search page. And I know this from experience because I released my recent game. I'm not going to tell you about it. We're just going to use it as an example. But I did do a soft launch and it didn't appear on the search results. And after I advertised it, it went back down to 0 players as expected. But after a couple of times advertising it, maybe on the 5th time, it suddenly went onto the game search result page, and I was starting to get a consistent flow of players, even without advertising it. So I'd have maybe 25 players online at one time, and I hadn't even advertised the game, there were no ads running, but I was getting the equivalent of a 10,000 Robux sponsorship for free because my game was on the search result page. And I think this happened because in the couple of times that I advertised my game, then Roblox started to get some data about how long players were staying for and how many thumbs up there were in comparison to thumbs down. So Roblox were getting good signals about this game. Players were staying in the game, they were liking the game, so it decided to put it on the search results page for the specific keyword relating to my game. So it's an example of how advertising can be good at the start of your game, but it's not necessarily needed all the time. It's a good way to kickstart your game because it gets players in there, it gets preliminary data for Roblox so their algorithms can see whether it's an engaging experience, whether players are enjoying it, and that is a good way to initially get your game out there onto the game results page, because that's where a majority of your traffic is going to come from if you're not on the front page. Personally, I like to advertise my game on the midweek instead of at the weekend, just because there's a lot more competition with adverts on the weekend. There's going to be more players online, but because of that, there's going to be more games spending more money on their adverts. And if you don't have much Robux, then they're going to outspend you. So it's going to be harder to get impressions on your advert. So that's why I recommend doing it in midweek. And also, another good tip is to start a Discord server or a community of the type for your game where you can have people discussing it, talking about it. Even if it's a small community, every time you advertise your game or you show it to a streamer or you get some people in your game, there's a chance that they're going to become engaged with it and they're going to want to learn more about it or give you some feedback on it or stay involved and updated for when you release new content. So by inviting them to a Discord server, you get to keep in touch with them. Whereas if you didn't have one, when a player leaves the game, it's going to be very hard for you to get back in touch with them. So if you have a Discord server for your most committed, loyal players who are interested in your game, then you have another way to be able to contact them and get their feedback when you release new updates. So the main takeaway from the video is that if your game is engaging, if it has got a good average visit length and your players are enjoying it, then there's a good chance that it's going to be naturally picked up by Roblox's algorithms. You might need to advertise it a couple of times for this to happen, but in my experience, this is what's happened. But it goes back to making sure that your game is actually ready, that it's polished, that it's got a good amount of progression, that it's retaining players, there's no bugs. If you have an engaging game which is high quality and polished, then I don't think there's any reason why the game should fail. So good luck. If your game is failing and you're not able to get it off the ground, don't worry, just go back a few steps, find out from your players why they don't like it, why people are leaving. That's what I covered in my previous video, so go check that one out. Wish you all the best of luck, and when you do finally master it and your game does get noticed, it's very rewarding and fulfilling. So all the best, good luck, and I'll catch you in the next video. Thanks for watching.